What's up, guys? Welcome back to the show. Ben Reed here with Next Gen Sales Leaders. I'm here with Shaz Matthew, who is the founder of AttractAI.io. It is an AI social media systems platform, and glad to have you. Can't wait to hear about your story, but would love to jump in with what is Attract AI and why did you found it?
Sure, it's great to be here. I appreciate the introduction. The basis of Attract AI is attracting leads and opportunities to your business with AI. And the way we do so is through social media. So we're heavy on inbound marketing, content marketing, and using AI as a means of distribution and getting more out of social media without the effort that it usually normally would require.
So what is this on all platforms? Is this LinkedIn? Is this Instagram, YouTube? What does it refer to?
Great question. So we build custom systems for every platform out there, and our main pillar content platform would be YouTube. I think it's the least automatable, if that's a word, platform. So usually you work with YouTube and then we repurpose it down to other platforms like LinkedIn, written newsletter, school posts, whatever have you. But YouTube is where we see the majority of the results.
Interesting. So I'm really actually excited to talk to you about YouTube because my focus is on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And so I've spent almost all my content creation on LinkedIn, and it's not video, but I think I have a lot of video content and I am not bad on camera, meaning I don't know if I'm great, but I'm not bad. And so it's something that I think I could leverage YouTube more. I use YouTube primarily for my podcast, as anybody listening to this knows, but there's so many tutorials I have that I could be posting on YouTube. So I'm curious, why YouTube and why is that where you get results? And what are you doing that is either different or special, or maybe you're not, maybe you're just following tried and true methods.
Yeah, so YouTube is based off of a few core assumptions. The first core assumption is that the more people watch, the more likely they're going to buy. So, from a logical point of view, you could rack up watch time hours on YouTube in bulk compared to other platforms. Like written is hard to judge. Short form, you're having people watch hundreds of videos to hit a threshold where they're comfortable with buying. I'm assuming a high ticket here, B2B. With YouTube, if people watch in succession, maybe 3, 4 videos, we see them fall into a cycle of booking a sales call and then hopping on a call. So that's the first point. It's like logically to rack up watch time, you'll need to be on YouTube or a long form platform. And two, it's one of the AI proof platforms. So as much as we use AI, I think it's going to be the last remaining platform where you could show authenticity through your personality and through speech, right? So like LinkedIn, Twitter, newsletter, AI could write a lot of the copy there. Short form, there's AI avatars, which are slowly leaking into YouTube, but YouTube is the last place that I think you can be authentic with your audience, and you can't BS it either. Like it's very hard to BS a 10, 15-minute YouTube video. The tried and true story of like Instagram channels, go rent a nice Lambo, run a bunch of ads, like you have a nice looking profile, right? So YouTube is like that last platform where I think you're sort of safe. You can build an audience that trusts you, and then logically you get people to watch you and get nurtured into your stuff.
It's interesting on LinkedIn. I'm seeing a lot of people, I don't know why in the last week, and maybe people are regurgitating their own, maybe through AI, the
Yeah.
actual thing that's trending. But the thing that seems to be trending is LinkedIn is going to shit. The content is going to shit. And by shit, I mean like it's AI written, it's not authentic.
Yeah.
People are copying and pasting. People are using tools like Clio and Taplio to do research and basically just regurgitating hooks. Everyone's doing lead bait posts. I'm actually doing a course on how to do lead bait posts right now because it's so effective.
Yeah.
And frankly, like the algorithm on LinkedIn is incentivizing the behavior because when I post even a short video or a long video, they allow you to post up to 15 minutes last time I checked. And I'll say that my video content doesn't get great engagement. And now you might say, well, your video content sucks, and fair, that might be the case. But I'm willing to bet that's not entirely the case. I think it's how the algorithm is promoting it. And so for me, where I get most of my value is actually through very simple images with lead bait offers to go opt into something to get some free resource.
Sure.
Because what it does is it creates a bunch of comments, and that it creates a viral, I think, input to the algorithm to say, okay, look, there's an engagement occurring here, and then I spend most of my time on that. Now, that's not bad. I mean, I am providing really good content, but the downside is that there's a bunch of people out there that see that that's working, and they don't create good content. They spam the system, and so everybody kind of like associates this lead bait kind of trend with spamming the system, and so it's hard to know what is good or bad.
Right.
And so I think that I really do wish video, high quality, especially long form content video, was doing better on the platform. But that being said, coming back to YouTube, now like I'm sitting here again with all my podcasts, with this longer form content that I'm doing. I have found that I do not get engagement at all on YouTube. Now, again, I'm a niche B2B
Yeah.
VP of sales, CRO, GTM type guy. So how many people are out there? But that being said, I do see people that are my competition that are doing well.
Yeah.
To be fair, I just got started there. But like, what would you say are the keys to success on YouTube? Obviously thumbnails, obviously titles, obviously the first 5 seconds on the hook. But like, what else? If you were coaching me and I'm the guru that has a following on LinkedIn, has a bunch of content, but isn't getting the viral views I want, what would I do to succeed with your platform, or just as a general best practices?
Yeah, first I'd love to address what you said, which is so spot on with LinkedIn. Is the way I look at it is it's going to shit, right? Because of the barrier to entry, right? Whenever you have a barrier to entry, which is essentially zero, with the means of you could copy and paste anyone's stuff, you could regurgitate anything. When the barrier to entry is that low, you just get an influx of just, you know, spam almost, right? Which makes it super hard to compete. So to roll that over to YouTube, I think the advantage lies in your story, your personality, and who you are. So before that was written through the newsletters and through your content, right? Your past stories and whatever. Well, now people could steal those stories and they could essentially lie and engagement bait. With YouTube, I think the first sort of key talking point I would give to people for you to understand is that virality wouldn't bring as much leads as you think. So like virality and lead gen are not the same concept. We've seen people, like if you looked at my videos, some of them get 100 views, some of them get 1,000. The ones with 100 views outperform the videos with 1,000 views in terms of a revenue point of view, which I know we're talking about B2B marketing and sales. So when you look at it from that point of view, virality isn't necessarily always the answer on the platform. And sometimes you could get away with, booking 30 to 60 sales calls a month with videos that get 100 to 250 views. So that's the first thing. It's more of a mental module that we give to people when they work with us, where it's like, we're not necessarily trying to launch you like Mr. Beast. We're trying to get the right people to see your videos, to understand your videos, to watch them, and then to book a call with you. So that's like the biggest sort of mental module I think people need to understand is virality and sales from content are two different things. Ideally, you get both, but you don't need a large audience to really monetize heavily.
Tom Bailu, I think his name's Tom Bailu, the guy from the Quest Nutrition, the guy he's constantly saying,
Yeah.
I launched sold
Yeah.
$1 billion company. That's his hook, like on every single post, which Tom, if you're watching this, probably won't watch this, but if you're watching this, change up your hooks. But the reason he's doing that is obviously because he's positioning himself as the expert, just like Hermosi has talked about selling his businesses for $50+ million. But the reason I bring him up is that he talks about this idea that he spent a tremendous amount of money because he has all the resources of the world. He has millions and millions of dollars to build a nice studio, to generate a bunch of content. It was mostly around like the growth mindset, more philosophical in nature, more about belief systems. And that's fine. That's great. But what he found was that it wasn't actually leading to revenue. So he would get these very viral posts and would get all these followers and content, but it wasn't actually generating revenue. And so his whole thing, like that he's been talking about in the last, I don't know, several months, is this idea that the content always has to relate back to the actual core product or offer that you have. And I think that like he came from the B2C world where he's selling nutritional bars to a consumer.
Right.
And basically anybody with a mouth and some hunger and any sense of like nutrition mindset is going to be interested in his product. Where I think the B2B mindset is fundamentally different because you have to very carefully curate an ideal customer profile, very clearly understand the messaging that those people are going to need to hear.
Yep.
You have to understand their awareness scale. Like, are they problem aware? Are they solution aware? Are they product aware? And then you have to create content with that in mind. And it has to be feeding into the problems that your problem solves. And so I think that coming from a B2B marketing mindset naturally pushes people to create better content that will generate revenue. And I think it is harder coming from the B2C world to make that switch. That being said, there is like, I'm going to like play devil's advocate here. I think that like likes and follows and those signals matter, but not the reason that people might think. So it's not like, okay, like if I get some random guy from Pakistan to, like my post,
Right.
and he has like $10 in his account and he's completely off ICP. He just, is curious about what I'm doing. And that happens all the time. I think most of the people in my school community are from India. Now, don't get me wrong. I think they will pay and buy smaller courses. I generally don't think they're going to buy my $10,000 a month thing. Now,
Right.
maybe I'm wrong. If you're from India and you're listening to this and you want to pay me $10,000 a month for my core offer, give me a call. I would love to be proven wrong. But generally speaking, I have found, because I've had hundreds of meetings with people from India, entrepreneurs, and they generally just don't have the budget. And that's fine. But the question is, like, is there still value to my overall community and to my brand and to my LinkedIn profile to generate engagement from those people? And I argue yes, for a number of reasons. One, because like if you're into what I'm into, one of my core values is like curing entrepreneurial loneliness, and we're human beings. Let's all connect, like kumbaya,
Right.
So there's that. But the second thing is that I think that like general engagement on a brand of any sorts is just like very obviously a social signal to anybody else who's engaging with the brand. And this isn't to say like the old cliche buying likes and followers on Instagram, what everyone does to drive up the perception of authority. That's not what I'm saying here. Like, I don't do that. You're going to hurt yourself if you go into like engagement circles and people are just randomly liking and stuff. That doesn't build your brand. Nonetheless, if people are authentically engaging with your brand and they just happen to be off ICP, let them engage. Fine, whatever.
Yep.
I think one, it helps you go viral in the algorithm. Not that that's the core goal, but it does help. Let's say 2 to 3% of the entire market is actually your ICP. It still helps you reach those people. I can tell you, I've looked at like my total impressions on LinkedIn. I would have had to spend tens of thousands of dollars in ads to get that level of engagement. So that's one. But the key kind of secret sauce, the thing that I'm getting to here, is that this idea that when you do outbound, when you're doing cold email, cold calling, text messages, LinkedIn DMs, whatever it is, people will land back on your profile. Now, the first thing they're going to do, and this is like straight out of the book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, the 2 types of thinking, they're going to make a judgment in 2 seconds if you're credible. What they're going to look at is your general like profile overview. And also, anybody listening to this, I have a whole like how to turn your LinkedIn landing page into, or your LinkedIn profile into a landing page in my free school group, link below somewhere. But they're going to see that, and then they're going to look at your posts, and they're going to see the engagement on your posts. It does make a difference if you have 5 or 10 likes or 1,800 comments. I mean, if you see the difference, you're like, okay, this guy is saying something that's engaging with somebody, and he's pretending to be, or is, or I don't know, because they're judging you right then,
Right.
is like a marketing guru, but he has results, and these don't seem like fake results. And so immediately there's like, you've gone from like, I don't know you, to, okay, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. And that's all you need to start that slippery slope. And then they engage with a piece of content and it's decent. And they're like, okay, And they engage with another one. Oh, I really like that one. Ooh, there's a free community. Let me opt in. Holy shit, there's a lot of people here and they're actually engaging. And there's a weekly call. Let me go to the Zoom call. Oh my God, that's great. So for me, like I'm with you on the like, you don't want to just go viral for the sake of viral. But if it happens, great.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's kind of
exactly. Yeah, it's
so.
not something to like put down. So we're around like we want to maximize like every video has a TAM, like an audience that it could reach, right? Like if you nail it 100%, which you never do, you'll hit 10,000 views. We want to have a ICP TAM to like the most core people that will buy from us. There's X amount of those people per video. We want to reach all those people. If we reach above those people, it's fine. But we just want to be reaching those people at minimum every single time. Going viral is not bad at all unless you're only going viral. So another concept it comes back to is the content funnel, which is super important for YouTube, where you have the top of funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of funnel, which all serve a different purpose. Top of funnel is going super broad, getting those people from other countries that might not buy, which I get all the time, which is fine. That sort of gives you that authenticity shock value of like, okay, this guy has 5K subs, 10K subs, cool. That's good. So that's like top of funnel. Middle of funnel is like that super educating stuff where it's like, okay, this guy's stuff is actually good. He's not just BSing his way to buying followers or whatever. And then you have bottom of funnel, which is showing case studies and results and stuff. So a mixture of all 3 of those is super important. Especially for B2B, we try to really target the middle and bottom of funnel where you're showcasing results and showcasing proof that you're good at what you do. And then every once in a while, sprinkle in like an AI trending video or a top 10 XYZ for your niche to just try to broaden up your channel because, like you said, it doesn't hurt at all. And If it happens, it happens. Like it's not something to complain about.
Yeah, I never thought about content having a TAM before. So, I mean, total addressable market in B2B, especially like the smaller the market gets, becomes extremely important, especially in cold outbound email, because people don't, especially if you haven't done cold outbound email before, people just think that you just like buy a bunch of domains and inboxes, you pull a list and you just start sending. And they forget that there's actually a limit to how many people on planet Earth would actually buy your
Exactly.
product.
Yeah.
And it's like, no amount of scale on cold email will solve a problem with a small market. But I'd never, until you just said that, considered that like the content on YouTube that you're producing has a TAM. That's a very interesting idea, and I'm curious, like, given it's like obviously driven by the algorithm who it gets delivered to,
Yep.
how do you, is it through keywords? Like how do you ensure that the TAM is seeing it? Because there's like the TAM, but then there's the people that I guess what you would call the serviceable, like the serviceable addressable market, the SAM, which is like how many of those people will actually see it, and how do you ensure the algorithm actually makes sure they see it? Like that's something I've always been not clear on in terms
Yeah.
of YouTube.
Yeah, so for YouTube, there is a little bit of like testing. So one is benchmarking. So if you find someone in a similar channel with a similar niche, talking about similar things, within some realm of similarity, you should be performing just as well, if not better than they are. And then you should also be going towards the adjacent market as well. So like you have the TAM, and then there's people to the right or left that could fall into it or could not. Like that's also applicable. So one is benchmarking. Two is really
Like what does
defining.
benchmarking mean?
Benchmarking is sort of seeing like, okay, I'm getting 100 views a video. This person has a
Okay, I
same
see.
size channel. They're getting 200 views a video. Might be like if they're blowing out of the water on a statistic, that might be something to look into where it's like maybe I'm underperforming or, something like that. So it's sort of just market research almost or content research. Two is feedback from the leads that are coming through. That's like the key sign that we see that your videos are reaching the right audience. So if I'm putting out videos and people that are opting into my school community have no correlation with what I'm selling, it might not be reaching the right people. Now, the thing I love about YouTube and all of these platforms is that they are built to deliver my video to the people that want to watch it. So I'm not going to reach some like, I don't know, random 70-year-old in Russia that wants to learn about fishing. Like it's just not going to happen because that's not the content I make. The algorithms will match the video to who I want to see it. I just have to create a good title, thumbnail, and video that tells the algorithm to serve XYZ people. So it's sort of like handing over your video to this person, and this person like hand delivers it to the people that want to buy from you if you make the video right. So a lot of the trust is in the algorithm, and the way to see if that's working is really see who's joining your communities, the sales calls that you're getting on, like why are they there? What are they talking about? Like it should be pretty relevant to the content you're creating. That's how you know you're on the right track. But there is no like telltale metric. Like I could give you like a number or something. It's a lot of just sort of, I don't want to say feeling because it's not like a science. Like I love to have numbers, but it's sort of like a feeling. Like you'll know if you're reaching the right audience based on the feedback you're getting from people and conversations and stuff.
It's making me realize like I'm all about UTM tracking. Anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's about putting in little parts of your URL and the UR past the URI and like the past the question mark. So if
Yep.
you look at your little URL, you'll see the question mark and there'll be like UTM underscore source and UTM underscore medium. Those are UTM parameters. If you don't know what it is, Google it. But they're basically the fundamental foundation of how you do analytic tracking on the web across different web pages. And so what I do, and I'm kind of unique in this because I haven't seen many people do it particularly well in the B2B space, is that I use those UTM tracking to push it into the CRM at the contact level. And then I track it across all activities that occur within the CRM from, inbound lead,
Yeah.
meeting sets, SDR conversation, meeting no-show, proposal sent, etc. Now I bring it up because I'm realizing my owned asset, which is where I push people to from my content, is my school group. So I have a free community. Many people listening to this might be in the free community, but it's a B2B scaling community. And it's on School, which is famously now owned by Alex Hormozy. And in the thing I'm realizing is I don't think they have great UTM tracking mechanisms. Like in Calendly, for example, you can send a link with Calendly with the UTMs and it'll track into Calendly and through Zapier, you can push that into your CRM. Whereas I'm pretty sure School doesn't have a good way of doing that. And that being said, I'm pretty sure 98% of my traffic's coming from LinkedIn right now
Yep.
through my lead bait posts. But I would in the future, as I expanded these other channels, go into UTM tracking. Do you have a sense if school does that or does it not do it?
So school is notoriously behind with a lot of analytics. Like they don't give you much insight to a lot of stuff, which is sort of disappointing. But the way you could get around that is having people self-select where they come from, like on the 3 questions page. That's what we do. So
Hmm.
I have a school community as well, and then we have a similar like following in there. Basically, I put where did you find us? Instagram. There's 3 options: Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Like those are the only 3 options.
Hmm.
Or actually, sorry, 4 would be school. I actually get a lot of traffic from school itself.
Hmm.
So it's pretty interesting to see. I actually get I think it's YouTube, then school organic, where people just mess around, or and they find me, and then not a lot of people have a following in school. So if they have a
Mhm.
following, then you check out their community, and then you join their community, and sort of gets like it's a little bit weird, but that's one way to get around it. But inherently, the UTM's like the more sophisticated, advanced tracking. I don't think school has it.
Interesting. That's good feedback. I'm actually going to add that. Have you tested whether that impacts your opt-in rate to the school group?
I haven't. I would. So what we do actually is our call to actions are to a landing page, and then
Hmm.
once they give me the information on the landing page, they get a webhook to a school invite. So that's the way we do it. I don't send them right to the school page for reasons where I could collect more information. So school, you're limited to 3 questions maybe. On our landing page, I ask like I'll ask a little bit about their monthly revenue and their goals and stuff like that. So I see significant drop off, which is fine because I want the people to fill it out anyways. And then I auto invite them to school.
Hmm.
So I don't have like a actual data behind it, but the more questions you ask, the more drop off you get because that's just the way it goes.
I'm curious because generally speaking, I mean, I think this isn't like I'm not breaking ground with this opinion, but the more conversion mechanisms you have, so say YouTube video to landing page to email to invite,
Yeah,
obviously there's going to be a conversion loss,
yeah.
meaning less people convert. I'm curious if you did an A/B test, if you moved them directly to the school group and then you followed up with like a DM questionnaire internally. Um, I don't know. Anyways, it's worth asking. For me, like I conversion rates were kind of now off topic, which we'll get back to like the YouTube stuff in a second. But for me, like I am very interested in conversion rate optimization across funnels, and I think more so than the average B2B marketer, because it's very normal in B2C land where you're selling e-com, for example, or you're doing heavy like paid app traffic where you're trying to get like your CAC, or your your ROAS, your return on ad
Yep.
spend down to like 1.1 to eke out that like $5 margin. And it really matters. Where in B2B, high ticket, there's so much margin, relatively speaking, people aren't as crazy about it. That being said, like for me in B2B, I generally try to actually introduce friction to the funnel because the problem is like if you're just doing very tight account-based marketing with not like broad-based kind of content like we do,
Yeah.
it's fine. You don't need that. But if you as soon as you start doing content, you start getting a lot of people from all over the world, like we've been talking about, who are off ICP and they want to book a calendar with you and they want to like engage with you. And so I do spend a tremendous amount of time kind of wasting time talking to people that are just not a good fit. And so for me, generally, I will put in friction, like whether it's a questionnaire or whether there's like, you have to actually pay to get on the call in those types of environments. Now, I think like this is like, I think again, Tom Bilyeu actually said this. I have to give him credit where he said this, which is this idea that everyone talks about the 4 levers, right? Of like being an entrepreneur, which is like money, obviously, human capital, which is human beings, content, and technology, and content slash audience slash list, but then technology. But he said something interesting to me, which is like that's what all the entrepreneurs say is like you need those 4 levers. That's where you create flywheels. But he's like actually the biggest lever of all is knowing which one to pull and when, because any
Yep.
point of leverage can actually harm you. And meaning like if you pull the money lever too early, like you go raise capital, you actually can hurt yourself. Same thing with like if you hire too many people too quickly, which
Yep.
I've done, you can hurt yourself. Same thing if you install technology and process before it's ready to be put in place. Now you've put a process into a system that wasn't needing it because it wasn't optimized. And one of the things about like conversion rate optimization is sometimes you don't want to. So you sometimes want to slow people down. And so you add you had more friction. For me, I'm at the stage, and this is what I was going to say. I now remember. It just came to me, which is I at this point want to get as many people as possible into my group, even if they're not perfect ICP, because I want to build that foundational layer of just like proof, like, oh, people are engaging. Something's happening here. I don't know what it is, but something's happening. And so for me, it's like, okay, just go ahead and pour fire on and like, don't worry about the conversion to revenue at this moment, because it just says to anybody who jumps in there who is an ICP, it provides value. Anyways, we can move on from that subject.
Well, I'll do one short point because I think that this is an interesting perspective because I had the same thing. And I was to the point where I would even deny people entry to the free school group because they didn't fit a certain criteria for me. And then I realized I heard this from someone on the internet, and it was like, the people in your audience are going to buy. So if there's 50 people in your school community, they're going to buy. Those same 50 people will buy if there's 1,000 people in there. You'll just have 950 non-buyers, which is fine because you have 1,000 people in there now. So that's why I started letting everyone in, because the number value is it's more attractive than a 50-person community. The buyers are going to buy regardless of how many people are in there, especially if it's free. So yeah, I was in the same sort of mindset, and now I started letting everyone in. And also the last point I'll wrap up on is for the community, I let people in. For my calendar, I'm more friction aware. So if you, like with routing and all this stuff, like if you answer a certain question and it's not aligned, then you don't even see the calendar, you go to the free group. So community, less friction, calendar, more friction, because I think calls over time add up like crazy if you're not talking to the right people. All of a sudden you're wasting 4 or 5 hours a week just sitting there knowing a person's not going to buy. Try not to be mean and hanging it up, So that's sort of an interesting take, yeah.
That is interesting. For me, when I first got started, and I think this is like an important idea about like whether we're talking about content on YouTube or LinkedIn, or even like building a community, or just any type of build out of anything, like whether it's a product, whether it's a course, whatever you're building and being creative on, is it takes a lot of iteration and time. And so like what you start with in the tactics we're talking about, like it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Like, it's like everyone talks about the perfect thing to do and like having the perfect system with the perfect conversion set up, and like, do we do UTM tracking, or do we have a landing page that then goes into the school group, and then do we have a calendar link at a particular spot? I think that the entrepreneur, the person, and I don't use that as a derogatory statement. I say that as like anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur that is not, or is just getting started, generally over obsesses about those types of details. And they literally won't take action because they need to go find a guru who will tell them like the specific setup that they need to do.
Yep.
And the truth is that yes, there are those people, and yes, you can find them. And there's courses out there to do that. Specifically, for example, on like school group conversion rate optimization and funnels. That being said, I think it's just better just to go in school or circle or any community or newsletter, Beehive, just start one,
Yep.
Because I started mine last June. The first version of it was gross. It was like, if I showed you the actual user interface, not the actual, like the school group interface is set, but like the graphics that I put in there, the branding I put in there, it was like under benjaminaaronreed.com. It wasn't under Next Gen Sales Systems. It used to say like phase 1, 2, and 3 in my classroom section had like, I thought my ICP was like small business owners, not like that were specifically like a very particular type of SaaS company. It turns out they're actually like agency owners and GTM experts.
Yep.
So I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know who I was building for. My content on LinkedIn wasn't very good at the time because, again, my background is like I'm a cold outbound GTM account-based marketing CRO guy who goes and finds a very tight list and sells them $100,000 product. I'm not the like, my normal day-to-day is not the content guru who then goes creates a bunch of like lead-based content and then generates virality. So this whole world is very new to me. And the number one thing I can give as a piece of feedback to anybody, whether it's podcasts, groups, newsletters, anything, it's just fucking do it. Like, go launch. It's gonna suck, and you got to iterate rapidly. If anyone actually like truly like saw like a screenshot of the changes in the group over time, it has evolved even in the last 3 to 4 weeks. I just am adding my pro community. So there's 2 communities now. There's the free and the pro. And if you want to get access to the pro, you can either DM me on the school group, or you can go in and all the links are going to point to my lead bait, my Tripwire, which is a $1 course. And in that, there's going to be a link to the pro group. I'm sure you'll be able to search for it in the future as Next Gen Sales Systems Pro if you're listening to this in the future. But my idea here is that I didn't start with a paid community, and I didn't even think I was going to launch a paid community. It was like just a big experiment of I'm going to launch this content. I'm going to produce a bunch of content on LinkedIn. They didn't even connect together. I didn't even think about promoting like the school group through LinkedIn or YouTube.
Yeah.
I didn't even like, there was no like vision of like podcast and content and lead bait, and it's going to circle back to the school community. And within the school community, they're going to go to the classroom. And in the classroom, they're going to see a link to go to a Tripwire $1 offer that in that is going to upsell them to a pro community. And in that, I'm going to get, some courses to be sold. That's what it is now. That was like so far away, not my vision 7-8 months ago.
Yeah.
So I just think the key thing is like movement and action are everything. And your positioning, your understanding of your audience is everything. And whether it's newsletter or whatever, just freaking start. If you actually go back and watch my first podcast, I'm sure the first 3 to 4 are like horrible.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Like, same thing with my YouTube videos. I kept them up from 2 years ago. Terrible, but I keep them up as like a sort of selling point. It's like no one starts perfect. And what people, entrepreneurs, not again to use it like in a negative way, they try to solve everything, and it's impossible to solve everything because you don't know everything when you start. There's so many minute details of stuff. So I like to say, like, and I heard this from someone else, but the path illuminates as you walk it. So like you'll be walking the thing, and then it's like, okay, well, I could have never foreseen this because I've never walked down this path before. Like there's just, you don't know what you don't know, right? So as you walk the path, as you do the thing, stuff will come up, and then you solve for those things. The worst thing you could do is overthink and just sit there and not walk at all, in the sense. So that's something that sort of kept me going, is like, if I want to do something like LinkedIn, for example, just started LinkedIn recently. I'm a newbie. I just whipped up some AI stuff based on my knowledge, and I just threw it out there, and like, whatever. Like, I'm just going to start, right? It's like the easiest thing you could do. So yeah, I think it's helpful for a lot of people that are sort of like stuck or overanalyzing.
I'm editing a video right now that I'll send you. It's going to be in the school group, but I'll send it to you afterwards. But it's like literally like my entire thinking around like LinkedIn and what's working right now. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that Jordan Peterson I was listening to him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he talked about this idea that like a bad plan is better than no plan.
Yeah.
Because no plan means that you are going to just like be thinking about what the plan should be, and therefore you're not taking action because you're like, I don't have a plan. It's like basically like you're sitting in the desert and you're like, I just don't have a map, and so I'm not going to start walking because I don't want to go in the wrong direction. And the truth is like, okay, maybe that's not a great analogy because you could truly like actually die going in the wrong direction. But I think that in entrepreneurship, the risk of death is like usually not high. And yes, directionally, you want to go in the right direction. And I think that's where like some basic mentorship and just joining some communities just to directionally go in the right direction is fine. But the problem is people then take that and then go like, it's like course porn. It's like, I got to go and learn every little thing. And, oh, I don't know about landing page design, so I'm going to go spend 5 hours just watching like ClickFunnels videos. And it's like, oh, but I don't know how to do like, I don't know, VSLs. Let me go spend like 20 hours doing that. And you end up like just in this like nonstop, learning fest. And that's good. I mean, I will admit, like, I did that a lot for my first 3 to 4 years in entrepreneurship, and I went to the conferences and bought all the courses. But I would say that like I also simultaneously was an entrepreneur, and I was a founding CRO at multiple companies, and I was screwing up as I was doing it. So all of that learning was kind of being integrated and actually tested against reality. So I just think for anybody listening, you got to just, even if you don't know what to do, just frickin' start.
Yep.
And listening to this, it's like, if I could go back to the beginning, I would like, number one thing is just choose a average or at least growing market that you find deep interest in, and then go find like a category within that market and just like get obsessed with it. And if you can't find that, then don't start producing content, because it's like you're like what you're just making content for nothing. So it's like you got to find your space. And for me, it's like if I'm like a 17-year-old to like say 30-year-old or even older who's just getting started in the entrepreneur space, is find your lane. And you don't do that through like creating content. You're going to go and dabble, and you're going to try shit, and you're going to see if you like it. The key thing to content is really just persistence, consistency, and doing a lot of it, and then doing it over time. And you're not going to keep doing it unless you deeply like the subject. Like, I like talking about sales and marketing. I like talking about B2B. I like talking about high ticket, SaaS, agency. I like this conversation. I'm having fun.
Yeah.
if I had to do this just because I had to create content to promote something I didn't actually like, I wouldn't keep doing it. I'd be like, dude, I'd rather just go like walk the dog or like go to the gym or play some poker.
Right.
Um, so I think that like people just like all they do want to get started, and then they'll hear me go, you just got to get started, and they just start going and like doing something stupid, and it's like, look, you got to at least have a direction to like focus on. And so that sounds like the opposite. You're like, Ben, you're now arguing against yourself. You're saying you got to get started. Don't get started until you know your direction. And I'll say that that's what it means to be a noob. That's what it means to be somebody who has no clue what they're doing.
Yeah,
Is like,
exactly.
you just got to start. The walking is like literally just like, I'm going to go like in this direction and just see what I bump into. And you said something like the path illuminates as you walk. I always tell people it's like a Zelda map,
Okay.
you know, the game
Yeah,
Zelda.
Zelda, yeah.
And so like people like end up, or at Pokemon or any other freaking, you know, overlook, you're looking at down at the map at the little character, and there's like a dark map in front of you. And like you walk up and like the map kind of like opens up just a little bit. And
Yep.
there's like a wizard, and you go and talk to the wizard, and the wizard's like, do you want to buy some berries? And you're like,
Yeah.
sure, I'll buy some magical berries. And they're like, you can go down and visit the troll. And you're like, okay, fine. And then you go down and visit the troll. Like if like it is so actually accurate what
It's quite
happens in
it's literally a
entrepreneurship.
game. Yeah, it's game. It's
It's a
literally
game.
like that. Yeah.
And you're gonna meet like we're meeting, I don't know like if we'll ever like, you know, do something beyond this podcast,
Right.
but you are one of those characters in my life right now where it's like we're
Yeah,
meeting, we're
literally,
having
yeah.
a conversation, you know, and it just like it's I just tell people like, man, walk just walk in a direction. And when you find out that like the wizard you're talking to is actually like an evil, you know, sorcerer, you walk the other
You turn
direction.
around.
you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It sounds
I,
oversimplified, but it's very true. It's like a video game.
I think that entrepreneurship is like so much like Lord of the Rings, in my opinion,
Okay.
because I didn't realize like the degree to which there is evil and treachery and deceit and lying, but also goodness and heroism and courage and integrity and all these like values and traits of the characters that we see in these kind of legendary movies. But entrepreneurship is like going on the adventure. And Jordan Peterson actually said this as well in the same podcast. He said something like, I can't remember, he was reciting a biblical story, so I'm not going to like bastardize which specific story it was, but the idea was the entire moral of the story was the purpose of life is to go on a meaningful adventure, and it's in the adventure itself is what gives life meaning, and the adventure is meant to be difficult and hard. It's not meant to be easy. It's meant to be challenging, and a bunch of evil monsters are waiting for you along the path that you're going to have to face one way or another. But you got to go down it, and you know, and so that's like the key thing to what we're saying is walk the path. But no, it's not just a path. It's so much bigger than that. It is an adventure.
Yep.
And like Alex Hormozy said this the other day, which is like he was talking about being in a lawsuit, and I've been in a lawsuit too, where I had to go and I had to sue ex business partners for stealing from me, and so it's like one of those things where it's like in the moment it's like, oh my god, like how did I get here? How was I this idiot that allowed that to happen to
Right.
me as an entrepreneur? But what Alex said, which was interesting, is he said, you know, that just means that I'm in the game, and when I get to a certain stage, there's certain things that are going to start happening. And one of the things is lawsuits. Like if you get big enough and you make enough money and you sell companies for millions of dollars, there's going to be lawyers and there's going to be potential conflict around whatever the conflict is. And so for me, like that was an interesting take because it's like that old adage, newer levels, newer devils. And that's kind of what I have thought of when it comes to this adventure path, which is like you're going on the adventure, and it's like if you what's that video game where it's like a fantasy video game? Is it Final Fantasy like 7 or something like that?
Okay.
But like where they keep on, maybe this is every role playing game on planet Earth, but like they keep on getting more armor and stuff so they can face the bigger giant and the bigger final boss.
Yeah.
So they have more treasure and more weapons, and they keep on leveling up. It's the same thing, but they get to the final boss, and it's not like the final boss is easy to kill. Like they are
Yeah.
like a Super Saiyan compared to, I'm using all these like crazy anime, like, you know, type of references,
Yeah.
but, Dragon Ball Z, like Super Saiyan, you can be like that. But and if you went back to say the beginning, like Frodo and the Hobbit when he's walking out of the Shire for the first time, he would probably just defeat any bad guy in that space. But he had to become a different person or a different level of himself to then like go on the path. And so I think that's just like all of this collectively is like walk the path. You will level up. You're going to meet some demons. You're going to meet some guides. You have to become good at judging what is true. The path will not illuminate until you walk it.
Yep.
And you just have to know that that is reality. And I think that's like just a core part of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Once you fall in love with the walking of the path, like then you'll get really good because then you just walk and you solve problems along the way. So another one of the things that Harmozy says that I think is super impactful is, and this goes hand in hand with content to bring it back to like the content side of things is
Mm-hmm.
no work gets wasted. Meaning if you're posting content, if you're doing work and you're walking that path, whether you think so or not, you're gaining skills and you're to think of it in an AI sense, you have a knowledge base in your brain of stuff that may or may not help you in the future. So I've started multiple. Like my background is 16 years old. I started day trading and trading shoes online and doing all this stuff to make a buck. Like as soon as I realized I can make a lot of money with this device, like this laptop, I was all in. Like
Mm-hmm.
so, I realized that in high school and I started doing all this stuff and failed a lot. But those skills from negotiating on eBay and haggling over prices and the skills of going and sourcing products, I used to do Facebook drop shipping and all this random stuff, that all plays back into what I do now with my agency. So like no work that I did over the past years ever got wasted. Might have felt like a waste in the moment, but you're building collective skills to then, progress and slay those bigger demons and bosses in the future. So I think it's a super interesting point. Which goes back to content is the work you do for content, or I guess to frame it in this sense, is whenever you do work, content is there to amplify the work you're doing. So you could very easily launch a YouTube channel because you have SOPs, documents, client interviews sitting in your computer waiting to be filmed. So I think, like you mentioned, you don't want to just start producing random content because that also doesn't help. But once you walk in a direction and you have somewhat of like a standing, like a foothold, then use content to just multiply your efforts and multiply your attention. Like we're living in a time where you need attention to sell your stuff more than ever before. So it's more so of like amplifying because we're one person, right? But you can amplify your voice by sitting in your room. I'm just in my chair, right? You could amplify yourself to the world and your message and your stuff through content, and that's the way I see it. It's like nurturing at a scale that otherwise couldn't be achieved by just one person. So that's like the social media game and stuff like that. So yeah, that's definitely interesting.
To highlight the like exact situation that I think everyone's scared of, that I went through, but that also ended up serving me, was this idea that like, okay, you're going to create a bunch of content and it's going to be meaningless, right? You create it and you're like, why did I even do all that? And so I don't know. I want to say like I didn't, for my own personal brand, I didn't really start producing content till I would say like February of 2024. So this is about a
Right.
year and a few months ago. Now, before that, I had produced like some type of content all the way going back to like 2016, 2017, sporadically for various projects I was creating, but very
Sure.
niche stuff that was produced to send like as post sales material and that kind of stuff, but not to really post online. The time I actually did like real social media management, like real true like multiple posts a day across multiple channels, was when I did my one B2C company, which was a royal disaster. Never will do B2C again. And never say never. But it was Every Lash. And so we had a magnetic eyelash company. Long story, we don't have to rehash it. But my wife and I were producing a bunch of content for like eyelashes, so a bunch of makeup tutorials. It just
Yeah.
makes me cringe even as I say it out loud.
Yeah.
So I like, I got really used to producing a lot of volume of content over time and having to do with the editing. And so I was doing a lot of video editing. But even before then, I was doing video editing for my software projects I was working on and little demos I was doing. So I started my video editing journey with, I think it was like the one that comes on the Apple computer, iMovie or something like
Yeah.
that. And so I started there, and I started like doing regular cuts, like where you would just do the film or the screen share or the video, and then you would just use the snip tool to get rid of some stuff and
Sure.
maybe add in an intro, an extra, an outro. And I figured out how to do like a logo intro on, Theme
Oh
Forest and
yeah, I know
go
what you're talking
buying
about.
those.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I got pretty good at like graphic design. There's a whole story behind that. But each one of those things, I was like, oh my God, I should just hire a designer. I should hire a video editor. And the truth is like, maybe I should have, but I learned so much about the art of editing and the art of like content creation. And I started asking questions. I'm like, well, this isn't doing well. Let me try this. And I would get a little new thing that would happen. And by the time I came in to do this, I kind of had the foundational video editing view, but I was like, man, my videos look like crap. I was doing it on my phone. I didn't understand the lighting setup very well. So I went on this whole journey of like, how do you light the video, and like how do you have your key light, and how do, like, even right now, like you'd see there's like a blue like line here. There's a blue light flashing in my face. Why is that there? All
Sure.
these questions, the stupid rope light. All those things like came after 1,000 little iterations of trying to make things better. And it doesn't happen overnight. So I go through that journey, and I buy all the equipment, and I start producing content. And you think I was done, right? Problem solved. No. I took an angle where my focus wasn't on LinkedIn at the start. It was on uh, Instagram.
Okay.
And so even though the agency had been around for years, I was like, I'm going to position myself as a complete noob. I don't know why I chose this. But like, I was like, I'm going to position myself as a complete newbie, and say like, something to the degree of like, I founded many businesses, but I've never had a massive exit. And that's true. Like, we sold the business for 7 million, and I had 10% ownership in it.
Okay.
Right. And, we bought a few businesses too. And one is doing now $4.5 million, and it's a SaaS business. So that's good. Right. But
Yeah.
I've never had like $100 million exit. So I'm not sitting here like, Alex Hormozy style, right, with $100 million in my bank. Um, and so like, I was like, you know what, like an interesting angle would be is I'm going to position myself as like, like a serial entrepreneur who's just failed a lot and is
Okay.
like starting it fresh.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know why. And so I started producing all this content. It was like I called it the like 1 year challenge or something, about like my day one. I'm launching a new business. I'm going to get
Oh,
to
like
$1 million.
documenting your journey type of.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it was like, I'm starting from scratch. Okay. And then I would document it on Instagram. And I like had the stupidest videos. I had videos like in a chicken suit. I had videos, I mean, like the dumbest stuff, like where I was like almost kind of making fun of myself. And then like within 3 weeks of launching this new initiative, we started really like on the other side, on the professional side, I was selling big contracts, like $30,000 a month contracts. And I'm like, this feels so stupid. I'm like, why am I doing this over here when I actually am generating millions of dollars in revenue over here?
Right.
You know? So I decided to scrap 2 to 3 months of content. I deleted all the stuff off of Instagram. And then I started doing the podcast and the more professionalized stuff.
Yeah.
And was it a waste? I don't know, but I will say that I learned a lot about video editing. I learned a lot about hooks. I got a little better on camera. I got to get like my weird shit out,
Yeah.
like I wanted to try some stuff. And it's all part of the journey, you
For
know?
sure. I I did the same thing. So I started my YouTube channel mid 2023, just random. But before that, in 2020, which is COVID, right? Locked in my house in my room here, and I started a TikTok channel, like completely unrelated to business, just like funny, random, like really cringy stuff. A few videos got like 50,000, 100,000 views, like really cringe stuff that has been scrubbed from the internet. But I got all my weird stuff out, like all of the recording, learning how to set up my phone. Like I don't have the greatest lighting or anything, but I know the basics of filming and positioning myself and all this stuff. Um, Came from past experience, which goes back to like no work gets wasted. Like the cringy stuff I was doing in my room because it was COVID and I could not go outside. I ended up turning into, a six-figure business organic content funnel because now I know how to record videos and all this stuff. So I think, yeah, content is it's an interesting thing. It's a lever you could pull, but it works in the direction that you point it in. So it could be funny, it could be cringy, but if you really nail it in, it's a super powerful tool.
I think once you get there's a couple of key things. Like anybody who's listening to this is like, okay, well, where do I even start? Uh, One is just like get the basics of lighting and get a good camera. Like I have a ZV-E10. It's a Sony. It's like $500. It's kind of like a good medium level camera that will do what you need to do. And it streams on your computer. You plug it in with a USB-C cable and you can do all your Zoom calls on it. I would say even if you're just doing B2B like sales and you're not producing content, you should have a ZV-E10 as like a webcam because it massively impacts the way that you look on camera. And if we were on Zoom, I would show you where I would turn on my regular camera.
Yeah.
I look like a 12-year-old kid in like his mom's like basement. Like that's how bad the quality is. But
Yeah.
you have the ZV-E10, it has this very specific like way of making my face look. The background looks much better. It will make your selling, I think you'll increase your close rate significantly. And people jump on and they're like, "Oh my God, how does your camera look like that?" And because it just enhances everything. So get good lighting and just get like a nice little backdrop with like some of these like little like subtle lights in the back.
Yeah.
LEDs are decent. That's number one. And then number two is just understand like the basics of like what kind of content to create. And the basics for me is like choose your ICP and come up with like we talked about before, like your top of funnel, middle funnel, and bottom funnel. What's that? Well, for me, it's the awareness scale. It's like I always talk about Eugene Schwartz's awareness scale, breakthrough advertising. I'll say it 1,000 times, but like find out like where people are on the awareness scale, which is like, are they problem aware? Are they solution aware? So problem aware would be like, I use the example of cancer and it's horrible, but like people have cancer in the world and they're not aware of it. So they're unaware.
Right.
People have cancer and they are aware of it, but they don't know how to treat it. They are problem aware. People have cancer and they know how to treat it through something called chemotherapy or something. They are solution aware. But then there's various like products for chemotherapy, which is like the company. So that's product brand aware. So create the content around the problems for the awareness scale. So for like problem aware, if they like, or if they're unaware, it would be like the content. This is probably not a good example, but like it would be like how to know if you have cancer through full body screenings. Like it's you're stoking the fear of the potential of having cancer,
Right.
right? And so people are like, oh, I want to know that. So then it's like, okay, you learn you have your cancer, and you say, what are the top five ways to cure pancreatic cancer? I don't think that you die on pancreatic cancer, but like whatever like that. Like I'm not trying to make light of cancer, but
Right.
you get my point. Is that it's like this you start to make content about the next stage. So if they're at the problem aware, make it about the solutions. So if they know I have this problem, okay, what's the biggest the 5 solutions they have? And then it's like, okay, they know about these solutions, how do they compare to other solutions? Or here's the 5 pitfalls when you use chemotherapy. And so you can start to just create content to build their awareness around the next stage in the funnel. And once you get lower in the funnel, it's more about like testimonials and building
Yeah.
your brand and all that kind of stuff. But that's it, man. It's like choose an ICP, understand who they are, get some good lighting, and just start making content, and you're going to screw it up for a year. And then keep going.
It's really that simple. Yeah, our 4-step framework that we walk people through, it starts with the ICP. So know who you're targeting. Once you know that, understand their pain points and the language they're receptive to. Like, an interesting thing is we work with a lot of AI companies, so to dial in their messaging. So like we worked with a company on YouTube that's trying to grow a YouTube channel, helping local businesses use AI in their company, whatever. So some of the videos we tested AI in the title, some of the videos we tested ChatGPT in the title. Those are the same thing, but to local business owners, those might like spur different emotions in them. Like ChatGPT is what they see on the news, so they might understand that, and AI they might not understand it. So like little nuances here and there is something that you definitely want to cover. So number 1, know your ICP. Number 2, figure out their pain points. Number 3, ideate off of their pain points. And then number 4 is just validate those ideas in the market already. So go to YouTube search bar, think the idea that you had, type it in the search bar. I'll say this, if you type your idea into the search bar, like your title, and a bunch of videos pop up that haven't done well, it's not going to do well for you. Like, it's not like you're like super special. It's going to push it out for you. If it hasn't done well for other people and the videos are like 2 years old, or even worse, if it's a recent video and didn't do well, it's not going to work for you. So as soon as you get that idea, do some research on what's worked for other people and then mold that into the idea that you are going to create. So all of a sudden, if you look at that, I think people also struggle with content ideas. It's like you'll never run out of content ideas because pick 5 pain points and then 5 videos per pain point. That's 25 videos. On YouTube, that'll last you half a year if you do it the right way and you're making high quality videos. So that's sort of the frameworks that we run through to get people started. And then, like you mentioned, on the actual like physical side of things, try to have a nice setup, try to get in a good mic and camera. I was doing it with these wired headphones and like a stupid microphone and camera for the longest time, and it was working. So the more you can upgrade your quality, the more you're going to be seen as a professional, get better leads, etc. But that's the process we use for ideation and getting started.
So can you say more? You have this product. Is that the agency or is that a different company?
Yep. So we have the product. Basically, Attract AI, we have a dashboard that has AI scriptwriters, AI ideation. Our team is in there, and it's basically a internal tool that we give to our clients to fulfill for our service. So when someone works with us, we feed them the content ideas, the titles, we do thumbnails, we do editing, and then they use our AI for script writing, and it's all housed within this sort of custom-made dashboard that we have. So it's like we have a productized service for our agency, and we fulfill with our SaaS tool, which is like our sort of our tool there. So that's sort of the way we handle it, and our goal is to get every single video a person creates down to about an hour of their time in total, from script recording, etc. That's sort of what we've been able to accomplish per video, because I think YouTube is it's hard sometimes to do it by yourself, especially editing. Like I edited my videos for a long time, and it takes a good amount of time to actually
Mm-hmm.
edit, cut out the stuff. Oh my God, like it just sucks. Sometimes it just sucks. And once you do that, you increase the friction to do it. All of a sudden, you're not recording videos anymore because you hate the after effect of recording it. So we try to solve that
Mm-hmm.
for people essentially through systems, our team, and then AI when applicable.
I'd love to see after the podcast some examples of the YouTube editing you do. I found that like YouTube editing is a very specific kind of art. It
Yeah.
is, and it's different than like Instagram or TikTok, editing. And I think that also editing, like any type of style or graphic design or any type of medium, goes through evolutions. And I remember like especially like I don't know 2 to 3 years ago, it was like this very specific cap cut style, like
Yeah.
ching,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
boom,
I know
like
what you're talking
flame,
about. Hermosi did that too.
and
He sort of dialed it back now, the flashy. And there are cycles. Like it used to be super polished, like, oh my God, like dopamine style editing. Now it's a little bit more
yeah,
laid back. Like you'll see him, and you can see it because the bigger creators will adapt, right? Now he's just walking and talking in his muscle tee, right? Like that's a more
yeah.
relaxed version of content. 2 years ago, he might be like he's like sit down, professional studio, cha-ching, this, like logos flying everywhere. So it goes up and down. For YouTube, I see that even no editing sometimes is fine if you could get right to the point. If you run a SaaS specifically, if you could just give a nice little 20-second hook, basically like by the end of this video, you will understand XYZ, boom, dive into it. I've gotten away with not editing my videos for a long time because I've gotten comfortable to record, and it makes the process even easy. And then if you were to edit, we try to keep it more simple and modern. We're not trying to attract the people that need the super dopamine filled edits because they can't watch a video all the way through. So it's sort of interesting. We've tested out a few things, and if editing, I'll say this: if editing is your bottleneck and it's giving you friction to record, drop the editing and just do a hook and just go right into the video, especially if you're selling B2B, because you'll underestimate if you just make good content, like people will watch and they'll understand.
Hmm. Yeah, and I've also noticed like sometimes you just need like one hook piece of content. Like there's a hook of the content. Like Alex Ramos's whole like content formula is hook, which is the 1 to 5 second kind of attention grabber thing, and there's 1,000 variations of like what that could be.
Yeah,
Uh, and then we could probably spend an hour talking about what a good hook is. But then there's like the retain part of the sandwich. So there's three parts. There's hook, retain, reward. And the retain is either stories, steps, or lists. And steps would be the top 5 steps you need to take to launch a cold email campaign. Or like lists would be like the top five cold email agencies that are crushing in 2025, as an example. Or the story could be how I launched my cold email agency in under 3 months and closed over $1 million by the 6 month. That could be like like kind of a hook slash like
sure.
story. And then there's the reward. Like, what's the takeaway? What's the big aha? Like, what the big epiphany that they learned? Why did they ultimately watch the whole thing? So, anyways, anyone listening, it's like that's kind of like the structure of it all. So, again, I'm now we're an hour deep into this, so I'm starting to lose my trail of thought. But um, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. To leave people with like tangible advice on the video is start the video off with a reason why they should listen. So we like a lot of the opening of my videos is we've generated multiple six figures through content. In this video, you're going to learn blah, blah, blah. So if you're not telling people off the bat why they should listen to you, it's very hard to retain their attention on YouTube when there's so many people like Alex Hormozy that are, sort of retaining their attention with massive brands and proof. So just try to have some type of proof that what you're talking about isn't complete bullshit, and that actually works. And try to do that in the
Yeah.
first 10 to 20 seconds.
So I remember what I was going to finish up on, which is like you can have a hook within a piece of content, but you can also have a hook content. Like meaning like let's say you have like 30 pieces of content, but there's that one content that just like hooks everybody.
Yeah.
And if they watch that one piece of content, they'll watch 5 other pieces of content and then they'll be hooked. So your hooks, especially in B2B, like I think in the B2C world where it's like you're competing against Mr. Beast,
Yeah.
that's kind of more difficult. Like people watching monkeys like hump each other, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing that, you need to like do some more crazy edits and have a bunch of like every single piece of content needs to be really dialed.
Yeah.
Like for example, Mr. Beast was like talking about with Zuckerberg about why he hates Facebook because like the only thing that does well on Facebook for him is silent videos because the algorithm prefers things that don't have speaking because as soon as you have language, it will only show it to English speakers, which like isolates like
interesting.
most of the world. And so he's like, I just really hate that about your platform. He said this to Zuckerberg. Whereas like, because they're looking for billions of reach, they're looking for millions of reach. Whereas
Yeah.
in getting back to the point we made earlier, in the B2B realm, like you really are looking for your TAM of your content for your ICP. So it's going to be, if it's in the B2B world, in hundreds of thousands, not in the tens of millions
Yep.
at the most. So for me, that's why it's like every little piece of content doesn't have to have the most amazing hook. If it does, great. But I found that if your hook is too spammy, if it's too too you know, like you're about to learn the 5,000, it's like if you
Yeah.
start to get like that,
A little
you
cringy,
actually lose credibility. And I found the more matter of fact I can be and just say what they're going to learn is a good enough hook itself. So I'll just say like, like for example, this is the exact system I use to generate over 1,000 school group members in less than 3 weeks with LinkedIn lead bait posts. That's like, there's nothing fancy about that. I didn't even
Yeah.
say it very well, but if that hits the pain point of the person who's like, oh, I want leads. I'm on LinkedIn. Shit, my shit's not working. Like that message, if they listen to it, will cause them to listen further. And as long as you like immediately follow up with like, okay, step 1, here's a diagram of what I
Exactly.
do.
Yeah.
And here's the backstory. And you immediately start adding value within that follow up. Where I think people get in trouble is they make a hook and then they talk about something else. And then they like 5 minutes into the video, they actually deliver on the hook. I think the key thing, and Mr. Beast has talked about this a lot, is like if you're going to have a thumbnail and a hook and a headline, you better immediately start delivering on that, like within like a
ASAP.
second
Yeah.
of the actual video. So that being said, just get started, keep on working at it. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, I know you're relatively young, but so this is like your first business or your second business, or how far have you been into it?
Yeah. So essentially my business, like I started side hustles, all this stuff, while I was in high school, and over the course, I mean, I've done a lot of stuff online, like drop shipping, all this stuff. And I was a junior in college. I actually have a biology major, completely unrelated to business. But I was a junior in college when ChatGPT dropped, and I was like, sort of like screw school, like I don't want to do this anymore because there was no conceivable way like this wasn't the future. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, I want to make a disgusting amount of money with this technology. So I didn't drop out of school. Otherwise, like I would be a dead person to my family. But sort of put school to the side, automated it a little bit, and then I went all in on like what you would call an AI agency. Did that I'm still doing that to this day, but basically my AI agency in brief, I was posting on YouTube to generate leads. So I'd find cool prompts on the internet, and this is when AI was getting a lot of attention, like early adopter attention. So I was booking, 30 to 60 sales calls a month from a channel that had a few hundred subscribers at the time. I was closing deals, but it was just not scalable. As you know, if you do custom projects, I mean, I was working with like CPA firms and then luxury rental apartments and like the most like CCTV installation companies, like the most random stuff, right? So I took a step back. I liked creating content. It was working for the leads. And basically I wrapped up my YouTube knowledge, marketing knowledge, combined with my AI knowledge. And now for the past year, I've been selling like AI content systems. Like this is where that offer was sort of birthed. So about 2 years into it now, in July. And yeah, it took, again, like the path illuminated as I walked. I walked, I did YouTube, learned a bunch of stuff, didn't like a lot of stuff, and then repackaged my knowledge into this offer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when anybody gets started, I think an agency is kind of an easy start because it's like, look, if you know, especially depending upon who you're serving. So if you're serving like a very informed ICP, ideal customer profile, then you got to be very good. But if you're dealing with like a 70-year-old plumber business and that's who you serve and they have no clue about like TikTok and you happen to be like, a guy who made some weird videos on TikTok, so you just get the gist
Right.
and you can make videos, then it's like you already have a leg up on that person. And if they're like, hey, would you like to be in front of a younger audience, and they're like, yeah, because like that's their belief, like I need more exposure to the younger audience in my town, so I'm a cool, like maybe that's like their thing,
Yeah.
and as long as you're solving a perceived problem of the ICP and you have some authority over them in terms of like your skill set and your knowledge, then you could probably sell them an offer. So then it's just basically coming up with like packaging an offer, which is simply just a way of saying, I will do these 5 things for you for this price over this time frame through this delivery mechanism. And then you just go to market and you see what it is. And so for me, like if I was to start again as a complete like unknown, I was crazy and I built a piece of software that tanked, but I didn't realize how hard that was. And maybe that's good because then that led me into my next software
Sure.
project, which tanked, etc. But if you want, like, if I was like a 19-year-old kid, I would say you need to learn sales and marketing at some point if you want to be an entrepreneur. And the best way to learn is to have other people pay you to learn to do it for them.
Yep.
And so for me, it would be like choose an ICP, local audiences, especially like brick and mortar type of older businesses have no clue. There's a lot of competition, but you could just go to like the local guys, walk into their shop around your town and be like, hey, I'd love to do your, say, do you have this thing? Okay, I'd love to build this for you or whatever it is. It's probably the wrong offer and the guy's probably never going to pay you money and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, just go rip it so you can just get some reps in. You get the rep of selling, you get the experience of dealing with clients after the fact, you get the experience of not delivering for them so that they hate you. You
Right.
get like all of those like things out of the way,
Yep.
and then you're gonna learn and you're gonna go, that was kind of shitty. I don't want to experience that again. And then you'll go figure something else out. And I just honestly just that's the way I've lived my life is I fall my way forward. I go, I want to do that thing and I'm gonna go do it. And I'm gonna go just look like crap and just be an idiot for a good year. But then all of a sudden I'm gonna be an expert. And I can say like the school group that I'm in right now, like has 1,000 members. 4 weeks ago it had 200 members, and all of a sudden, like I just figured out how to get leads in there. So if I want to go make it to 7,000 followers, I think I'll get there in 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
I know how to do it now through LinkedIn content. And and now I couldn't have done that if I didn't just go, okay, I'm gonna go start a school community with like no real objective to make money. I was just I'm gonna see what happens. I just want to see what it's like. And
Yeah.
my background is like selling high ticket software. What is a high ticket software guy who sells to like Fortune 500 type businesses and is a product manager at SaaS companies building high tech software have any business doing starting a business school group? It's like, yes, I'm an authority in sales and marketing, but it's like that's a whole different medium. It's like a whole different offer, creating
Yeah.
courses and creating content. So, you just got to freaking rip it, man. Like, just go for it. If you have an interest and you have a will, you just got to go look like an idiot. That's my whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think agency is the best place. You got to solve the entire gap as a one-man show, and it forces you to do market research, offer creation, sales, marketing, service delivery. I mean, you have to do literally everything. There's no other business model out there that will put you through that much stress than an
Yeah.
agency will, and then it will teach you what you like, what you don't like, and to follow up, sales and marketing is everything. I think we're in the age, and I made a video on this the other day where you could copy anything. With AI being out here, I could go copy an offer. I could scrape your entire LinkedIn following and make something that sounds like you. I could do everything, But the one thing I can't replace is a marketing channel and a good salesperson. So I think it's more important than ever to be good at marketing and sales, like more important than ever before, because the offer creation side and even SaaS in some capacity, it's very easy to replicate with some of these technologies that are coming out. And I think the biggest moat you could have is someone that's good at sales, whether it's you or someone on the team, and some type of brand that no one else can replace. I think those are one of the two of the biggest moats that like edges in your business you could have right now outside of an offer and, you know, reading a $100 million offers, like reading the same stuff that everyone else is. It's like marketing and sales is where it's at.
Because once you build the brand, and I never understood the value of a platform or a brand or a community or a newsletter before, but it's like the truth is like next gen sales leaders, which is also next gen sales systems. So this used to be the brand. We rebranded to next gen sales systems. And so, this is like my higher ticket fractional stuff where I go in and run people's businesses as a fractional. But then the system side is more of the agency side.
Sure.
And I mean, no matter what happens with my courses, with the community, with my agency side stuff, as the market evolves, I can always just pivot and
Yeah.
add a new product or a new service, a new thing. What persists is the brand, and people will resonate with me. So, like, I have, say, 1,000 people in my school group at the point of this recording, but this will grow. And in a year, let's say I have 10,000 people. And then let's say I have 20,000 people on LinkedIn, and it will grow. And so it will only compound in terms of the content effects. The key authority is me. And the key thing to sales and marketing is trust and believability. And that comes through subject matter expert. And that comes through good content and actually providing value. And so it's like the number one thing I can do to just have like a platform from which to speak. It's the whole reason why all these super influencers just go and all of a sudden start a business and make $1 billion or $1 million is because they have the platform.
Yep.
So I didn't understand that. I wish I got started earlier as an old school kind of SaaS sales guy. But you know, we're here, and I highly encourage anyone else to take part in the content creation. I think it is the future. I think that as AI persists, as more fake content comes up, as it becomes easier and easier to create products and services, the number one thing people want is trust, and they want to have human connection, and they want trust. And so I just think that if people aren't creating, I know this is like super Gary V of me, but like if you're not creating content right now, like you're going to be, it's going to be a difficult road for you, I think, in the coming years.
Very much so. And I think to wrap it up is you underestimate the impact you have with every video put out, even if it reaches 50 people. Like if you talk in front of 50 people, that's a lot of people, especially if they're dialed in and, you know, ICP, whatever. But yeah, you underestimate how many people you could impact with your content, even if you don't think 50 is a lot of people, and you underestimate the compounding effects of content over time. So like if you start, it's like mid 2025, right? By let's say New Year's 2026, you could have a thriving inbound lead generation system if you just stick consistent with something for 6 months. Just stick with the platform, stick with the strategy, and don't miss a day. Like it will open crazy amount of doors because you also never know who's watching your videos. You never know where these conversations lead. So I think it's stupid not to start and then at least try and stick with it for an extended amount of time.
It happens faster than you think. I mean,
Yeah,
for
exactly.
me, I didn't really consistently start posting until late November. My podcast, I did, I think like 5 or 6 episodes through November. And now I only have I'm at like 18. I think this is the 18th that I'm doing. And I haven't even used it to slice up content and do a bunch of shorts on it. It's just like mostly on YouTube. And frankly, it's not like really the source of my lead gen. But like on LinkedIn, it's like I post probably 5 times a week. I'll miss a day here or there. If anyone goes back and looks at my LinkedIn profile before, say, February, I was getting like 2 likes on a post. If you go to my most recent stuff, it's like minimally like, okay, I'll have like a crappy post once in a while, but like I have these posts blow up, like 2,000 comments, 500 likes. And it was because I persisted, I tried, I got into the algorithm. I went from 5,000 or 6,000 followers to now I'm at 13,200 followers right around now. I added 2,500 followers in the last week and a half. It's only accelerating. It's going exponential.
Yep.
And it's like the more I do, the easier it gets. So it's like if I had that much success in 3 months of trying, now granted, I invested heavily in a studio. I have this whole backstory of creating training content, but you got to just start, man, and just go throw yourself out there. It'll be so fun to look back at these videos too. Like when you and I both, like say 10 years from now, we have a follow-up conversation. I'll be like, dude, I can't believe that happened. And like, you have a fucking million followers, and like, it's going to be fun to see the journey because even as I'm speaking this right now, anybody listening to this now or in the future, Ben Reed right now on his like personal brand building journey is like a year in, really consistently on content, like on the more professionalized stuff, 4 months in, you know? And so if I'm doing it here, if I'm on my 17th podcast episode, just go start. It's not that hard. Google it, ask ChatGPT, ask for advice, and just move, make movement. Last thing I'll leave everyone with is I cannot believe I'm going to quote this guy on my podcast. What's that guy's name? Like it's like Tozu or Tizzy or like it's the bodybuilder guy,
Oh,
like the younger kind
is
of.
he like a gambling guy?
Yeah, what's his name?
I don't know. Togi? Toger?
Togi or
Togi?
something like that. So I'm gonna quote Togi, which is like
Yeah.
horrible because I think he's such a buffoon. Uh, love you, Togi, if you watch this. But he's this kind of like frat guy, bodybuilder, steroid drug user. I mean, somebody you don't want to actually like quote. But the reason I'm quoting him is because I was just mindlessly, listening to the coffee. It's like the Coffee Hour podcast or CoffeeZilla or
Stefan.
something.
Yep. Graham Stefan.
What's the name of that podcast?
Coffee. I think it's coffee hour, iced coffee
The Iced
hour.
Coffee Hour,
Yeah.
like something like that. So they're in Vegas. I'm in Vegas. And I like their podcast. They actually have some really good content. And for some reason, they decided to have him on the podcast, which is out of the blue because they usually have like people like Hermosi
Oh,
on
Mosey.
or like
Yeah, yeah.
real entrepreneurs. And so I'm listening to it, and everything this guy's coming out of this guy's mouth, I'm just like, this guy's so full of it. But then he said one thing, and they're like, if you want to leave the world with like one knowledge piece, like what would it be? And he said something that like really resonated with me, which was stop trying to be so smart. He's like, be a little dumber. And I was like, that sounds so stupid. Then I was like,
That's sort of true.
he's like, because if you're dumber, you won't overanalyze something. And he's like, they're like, why have you succeeded? He's like, because I don't overanalyze it. He's like, I'm not like dumb, but I'm not smart either. And like what I'm really good at doing is just like moving. He's like, I'll film a video and I'll edit it and I'll post it. And then I'll keep moving and then I'll like go to a party and then I'll make some more content and then I'll post it. Or like I'll just take action. And I know that's cliche advice, but the ripple of like don't overanalyze it, because I do think my experience of watching entrepreneurs and the people that are really rich that I've gotten to know, most of them are not super geniuses. In fact, the thing, like one of the guys that I quote a lot, he's very wealthy, but he's not I'm not going to name names. He's not the smartest guy, but I call him the kind of the dumb bull. He's like the dumb bull that just keeps running into the barn door, and at some point the barn door is going to run over,
Yeah.
get run over. It's the same idea. Whereas me, especially in my younger years, is I had to know everything, like we were talking about earlier. I had to read the courses, and I had to overanalyze, and I couldn't start, or I would start, but then I would question myself and stop, and I wouldn't just run through the door. And so the key thing is like sometimes just take action and just have faith. One of the biggest things that I'm working on in my life, because I would say I'm probably above like average intelligence. I know I have a IQ above 150. Like I'm pretty smart,
Yeah.
from a horsepower perspective.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that like as a good thing. I'm just saying that's just reality
Yeah.
because I've been tested. And I will say that it's gotten in my way. And
Yeah.
I would say that like I wish to some degree I had more faith and wasn't so analytical. So I read this book called The Surrender Experiment. I can't the same guy that wrote the I can't remember his name. I think it's Michael Singer, I think is the name.
Okay.
Anyways, look it up, The Surrender Experiment. But it's this whole idea of this guy who was a yogi in the 70s, and he just wanted to be a yogi meditating, and his favorite book was The Diary of a Yogi, which is also apparently Steve Jobs' favorite book. I've heard that on Instagram, so if that's not true, please don't
I think that's true.
shoot
Yeah,
me.
I've heard the same thing.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so it's one of those things that like everyone keeps saying a falsehood, and so we all say it's true,
It becomes
but
true.
probably is true.
Yeah.
And so he goes on this like crazy business journey where by the year 2000 he sold his business for $1 billion. But he just like the whole book is him just wanting to be in the woods meditating, but through meditation and through just surrender, life started happening. And rather than like over analyzing, and he said his inner mind would always be like, oh, I'm not going to do that, or no, I'm not taking that opportunity, or I'm not saying yes to this guy.
Yeah.
He just made it a choice when he was in his early 20s. I'm going to just say yes to everything. I'm not going to analyze. I'm going to let the world, the universe, whatever it is, just move me forward. And even if I really don't want to do it, I'm going to do it. And for me, I always wanted to be in control when I was younger. Like I knew the way, and I had to build this landing page, and I had to do that thing. And I held on so tight. And for me, what I've been doing in the last, I'd say even 3 months, 6 months, It's just being like, you know what? I'm just going to move. I'm not going to analyze. I'm going to create. I'm going to put things out there and I'm going to let it fail and I'm going to keep going and I'm not going to worry about it. And so that's like the final thing I would leave everyone with is like we talk about walking the path, going on the adventure. It illuminates as you go. But I think the number one reason people stop is they just overanalyze. And I can say if you're like me, and you want everything to be perfect and you're OCD and you're type A,
Yep.
just let go, man. Just freaking move.
Yeah. I'll add on one last point because I'm the same way. I waste a lot of time overanalyzing. If you have that problem, I would recognize it because the problems, the ability for the problem to get worse is only going to be amplified with tech. Right now, you could talk to AI all day to develop the perfect plan. So, now in the age of information, the ones that take action are going to win. I think the problem is going to get severe because, again, everyone has their own AI model that they could talk to all day. And the trick is like you think you're getting stuff done by talking to this thing and developing the game plan and writing it down on the Google Doc and scoping it out when you're really not doing anything. Like you're doing as much as the person that's just sitting there, essentially, because no one's taken that step. So, yeah, I'll say the same thing. Just do. Start creating. Stop consuming. And yeah, it's never been easier
Well,
either.
here's the deeper insight, which is like, yes, all that and raw processing power is not like when we say intelligence, like you have high IQ, it just means that you have like a faster processing center. And you can process more data quickly
Yeah.
and you can see you're basically a better AI essentially.
Yeah.
And the reality though is again, if you study AI is only as powerful as the data it has access to.
Yep.
And so the key thing for human, I think, intuition and decision making and ultimately like doing the right actions, which ultimately leads to results, is knowing what to do is based upon experience, which is actually data. And so what I found, like even though I was bright when I think I'm still bright, but when I was younger, I was bright. I like in terms of like that higher processing power, didn't have the data to make good decisions. And because I believe so much in my own intellectual horsepower, I thought my processing of by myself in my own mind was sufficient to make good decisions. And the thing I've learned in the last 15 years is that's not true. In fact, like my judgment is actually pretty freaking bad. Like that's what I've learned about myself. And there's a great book called Managing Oneself. I can't remember the guy's name. Really famous business book from Harvard. Managing Oneself. Peter somebody. But the whole book is about like guessing what you think is going to happen in say 9 months, and like actually writing it out. Say this is what I think. I'm going to do these things, and I think this is going to happen. And then you look back and you watch yourself and you go, did that actually occur? And he says in the book, like, most of the time you're going to realize you're wrong. And, sometimes you're right. I can tell you I've done it. I write diaries, I write predictions. 98% of the time I'm wrong. Like where I'm like good at is like incrementally from like point A to like, let's say that there's like a graph and there's like 1,000 points along that line of that graph. And so if you go from point 1 to point 1,000, there's a big distance. I'm like decent on any like one particular like iteration of that.
Sure.
But in terms of like the actual end result, like any one iteration could like wildly, like not wildly move you. It's like small, but
Yeah.
over time moves you in a very different direction. So I'm decent at the small iteration guesses. The long-term vision of it, I'm like, whoa, how did I miss that? And I think that's like an important idea, which is like the most important thing is actually the movement and the path walking, which illuminates because that gathers more data and that allows you to iterate forward in a completely counterintuitive way than you could have imagined. And you could never have processed it or
If you
figured
didn't,
it out in your mind.
if you didn't actually take the step. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, I wish like, man, I wish I had my podcast like when I was 20. I would have like saved myself so much time just by being like, dude, like fucking do this. But that's why I do think like, despite the need for action, surrounding yourself by with good people is also the second biggest action you can take.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, I used to ask like, where can I find mentors? And for me, my mentors are podcasts. My mentors are school communities. My mentors are like little WhatsApp groups that have my ICP in it, and I'm learning from my ICP.
Yeah.
So my other big advice to anybody listening is just like, yes, go and do, but also like go find little pockets where there's people that have been there before you. And there's so many more of those things than I realized when I was younger, maybe because there are more now. But nonetheless, like I just, again, because I thought I was too smart for my own good and I didn't go seek the counsel of others. And I wasn't a dumb bull. And so Togi or whatever his name is, I appreciate that reminder. But anything else you want to add before we sign off here? I know we've been on for a while.
Yeah, I think surround yourself by people, and then another thing is, like you said, feedback is data that allows you to make better decisions. You could also get data from other people's experiences. So that's super important is you could sort of save yourself some time. And then to wrap it all up, content will open up networks as well. I have some really cool buddies, business friends because they saw my YouTube videos, they reached out, we connected, and then, it's a friendship, that's a partnership, that's a door that would have never otherwise opened if I didn't just talk to my computer screen. So to wrap it all up, I think take the steps and take the content steps if necessary because it will give you feedback, it will give you network, and those two sort of feed your knowledge base, make you smarter, and hopefully get you to where you want to go. But yeah, that's all I have. That was a good conversation.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Where can people find you on the web?
If you just Google my name, my YouTube channel should come up. That's a good start. Or our website's attractai.io. We have a demo of our AI systems that we've pretty much used to generate all of our sales. Free demo. It's on our site if you want to check out how we're attacking that. Or you just look up my name, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm a pretty open book if you want to reach out and ask any questions.
And to help plug your company, what is the dream outcome you give people?
We help people book 10 to 30 sales calls from their content with taking around 2 to 4 hours every single week, YouTube specific.
Cool. All right, guys. We'll go find them. We'll have links down in the show notes somewhere, whether you're on Spotify or Pod or YouTube or wherever you are. They will be in the show notes, and we'll make sure that you can get access. Again, Ben Reed here, Next Gen Sales Leader Podcast. Great to have you guys. See you later.